Welcome back to part 2 of the dust particles tutorial. In the last part we learned a good way to kind of make a flat, transparent dust particle with an outline, a custom outline. In this part we're going to take advantage of Vertex stream data from the particle system, and we're going to use that to improve our dust particle effect. Let's get started. There's a bunch of stuff we have not done yet. We are not taking advantage of the vertex data of the particles, so that's the next thing we're going to do. And the reason we're going to do that is we want the dust to fade away instead of just disappear. So let's do that right now. So we're going to need a few things for this. We're going to actually go into our dust particle inspector here, and we're going to turn on custom data, I believe. And we are, oh, sorry. Been a few minutes since I've done this. We want custom data, and I think we want a vector, and we'll just make it a vector 1. So number of components 1. And the x will be a random between two constants. And we'll go 0 and 1. I think that's correct. Now, if they're constants, are they going to give us decimals? I can't remember. Sorry, I'm not great at math. Anyways, that's what we want. We can leave custom 2 as disabled. Okay, and then there's a few other things we have to do here. Just trying to remember where they are. Sub-emitters, lights, custom data. I think that might be all we need for now. So if we go back into Amplify Shader and we type in Vertex, that's going to give us a bunch of stuff right here. Okay. And what we can do with this data is we can take a vertex text coord, which is right here, and we can put it to a float for, and then we can use the W value. I wonder if we can do that with a float 3 actually, because it has W. Well, we'll use a float 4. If you read the Amplify docs, they kind of explain how to do this. It's a little confusing to me still, but essentially what happens is from that vertex data that we're getting here, this vector 1 over here, it actually translates to being able to use this value, this W value, to get that random constant that we're setting through each shader. So to test this out, let's just go to the emission, and let's just put the W in there, and what's going to happen, see, it's not happening yet. I am doing something wrong. There would be white to black values here. Like some of them would be white, some of them would be gray, some of them would be black. So let's just figure out what we're doing wrong here. It's in the renderer. File roll. Custom vertex streams, that's the one. So click this, and let's try, oh, and then we need to add. Which one of these do we need to add here? I know we need to add one of them. I think we can add a custom one, is that right? Oh, here we go, custom. 1.x, I believe that's what we have to add. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, this is very useful because that allows this is giving us a random 0 to 1 value that we can use however we want in our shader. So I'm going to plug this back into here. And I'm going to take this vertex data And I'm actually just going to register a variable because we're probably going to use it in more than one spot. So I'll register this W, and I'll just call it vertex value. And then the other thing we're going to want to do is, instead of this fill color here, let's do something. Actually, we can do two different things here. Well, let's just do one for now. So instead of the fill color, let's put in vertex color. And we use that here instead of this. It's one less property we need in our shader, and one more property that we can get from the particle emitter instead. So what's going to happen now is we got this vertex color going into here, and I'll show you. If I go to my start color, now I can change it in the particle system as opposed to in the shader itself. So that's pretty cool. We're actually going to use that in a couple places. So I am going to go ahead and make a variable instead and just keep it over here. So I'll register that variable and I'll just call it vertex color. And instead of this over here, we'll just do a get. We use vertex color. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're off to a good start here. So we've got this, let's play with this texture coordinate that we've got here. And there's one more thing, I want to capture this as well. I want to capture the alpha of the color because we're also going to use that. So this we'll just call vertex alpha. Okay. And that kind of allows us to use a custom 0 to 1 because what we can do is we can do color over lifetime down here. And if we just go ahead and we set this alpha to 0, now we have a 0, or we have a 1 to 0 value over lifetime. Pretty cool. And as you can see, that's not doing anything to this yet, and that's because it's not using this alpha within the vertex color over here, because this is just emission. It doesn't care about alpha, right? It's just RGB. There's no alpha here. If we were to plug, so this, what we did over here, if we were to plug this, just to show you quick, vertex alpha, if we were to plug that into the opacity, here's what would happen. It fades out over time. So we could do some things with that as well, but we're not going to do that yet. I'll show you that after. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how on Earth we can get this to fade out over time without the opacity fading. We want the actual dust to like shrink. And the best way to do that is to change this little remap here. See, it's at 6 right now. If we turn this down, dust turns to nothing. See the preview here? So we'll leave it at 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy here, this vertex alpha, and we're going to plug it into, actually, sorry, well, yeah, let's do that first. So let's get the vertex alpha, and we are going to plug it into the max new, but first we're going to remap it. Oops, that's remap. Okay, so and we want to remap it from 0 to 1, that's fine. So when it's at 0, we want this to be at 0, I think. We'll play with the value a bit, and when it's at 1, we want it to be at 6. There we go. Now it fades away. The other issue here is that the outline also fades away because this gets thicker over time, and we can change that as well. So we'll make another remap here. See how this outline gets thicker over time? Yeah, that's okay, we can change that. So make another remap for this exact same value. and we will say, and that's going to be plugged into here. So we'll say at 1, we want it to be 0.95. That's what we have in there right now. And then we'll say at 0, it's going to be 1. And we'll see what that does. Plug it into there. There we go, that looks better. We can even go a little lower than 1. Let's go 0.98. Maybe it stays a little thick. 0.99. That looks much better. So there we go. Now you could leave it at this. This already looks pretty cool. But there's a few things that we haven't done yet. We haven't used this vertex coordinate, this custom vertex stream that we enabled over here. And we're going to use that right now. And the way we're going to use that is we're going to put it into the offset of the texture coordinate. So let's get that variable. So that's vertex value, we called it. Okay, and then what we're going to do for these offsets is, well, we can do it one of two ways. We could just plug these in. And what that's going to do is it's going to make each of these different. And it's hard to tell right now, but if I pause it, see that the tops, if you look at the tops of these, they're panning a little differently, right? So that's one way we can do it. Because it's giving it a random value, right? So it's giving each particle that comes out is giving it a random offset. They still don't really look that different though, do they? So we could also give it tiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to put add. What is that node? I can't remember what it is now. Append, that's it. Because we want this to be a vector 2. We don't need it to be a vector 2 though. Actually, I think this is okay. Let's just do an add. Let's add this to here. Add this to here. And we are going to do this in the tiling. So what we're going to do is we need to start at, so we get a 0 to 1 value from here. And we always want this to be kind of close to 1. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just say 1. Let's do a float. Plug this into here, and we'll call it 1. And then what we'll do is we'll remap this 0 to 1 value. It's getting a bit messy here. I will fix this in a sec. Let's move all this up because we want it to just be out of the way of. Okay. So we want this 0 to 1 value. So we're going to remap this from 0 to 1 to be, like, we don't want to change it that much. So let's go negative 0.2 to 0.2. So what that's going to do is that's just going to add a little bit or take away a little bit from the tiling from each of these. And now let's see how that affects it. It might be drastic. We might want to change it. Or maybe it's not drastic enough. Yeah, it's not really doing that much for me. Let's try changing this from negative 0.6 to 0.6. Even that's not crazy. Let's go negative 4 to 4. Okay, that's too crazy. You can see some of them are really tiny and weird looking. I don't like that at all. Yeah, let's go back to, let's just go negative 1 and 1. Try that. still a little too drastic. 5.5. It's better. And we can also change this to be something like, say, 2. And as we change that, we can see they get smaller, right? Which I don't really like the look of. Let's change it back to, let's actually try 0.5. That looks a little too blobby. Back to 1. Let's change this remap to negative 0.25 and 0.25, just to give us some difference, but we don't want too much for difference. That looks good. Yeah, I like it. Cool. So the one thing we're missing here, we have a lot of stuff going on here. The one thing we're missing though is it's just a big blob. There's no lines inside the big blob, right? And when you look at cartoon smoke, they always have little black lines inside to kind of represent almost like a 3D effect, like a blob of smoke coming out towards you, right? And it kind of has that rounded effect. So let's try to do that. It's a little trickier of a thing to do, but let's try it out here, and we'll see what we can accomplish from it. So we're going to let's kind of do this in a separate spot here. So let's grab these again. So if I just copy these or duplicate them, so I have my panning texture back and I have my sphere back. I probably could have just grabbed this as well. I could just grab from this one, but I just want to just kind of start down here so it's a little cleaner. And then we're going to remap it, but we're going to remap this one a little differently. Okay, and then remember we have to do the clamp in the floor. Let's just see what we can come up with here. Okay, so this remap it's only at 1, so we get like these little tiny circles, right? Let's make it a little bigger. Let's go to about 1.5. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and get some outlines from that. So same as how we did above. So we're going to remap the remap. Plug it into here. And we're going to say 0 to 1 equals 0 to 0.95, I think we said. Clamp that, floor that. Okay, and we're going to add these together. Or sorry, we're going to subtract them. Subtract this from this, and we get an outline. Okay, so now what we can simply do is we can add it to this outline. And that gives us this, right? I don't want to do just that though. There's some more that we have to do, but that is a good start. So let's plug that into the outline, and you'll see that it won't actually show up yet. And the reason is because the fill is actually overlaying over top of this. So we have to also subtract this from the fill. So instead of subtracting this, we then subtract this. So now we have this blob inside the smoke. The outline for it isn't going down though, and we need to do that. So we need this to do the same thing we did up here. So let's grab this. Actually, we need to grab both of these. Just duplicate them. And we need to plug this one into here, and this one into here. But this is going to be 1.5 at its max. That's a little better. It doesn't show up too much, and it goes away a little quick. So what we'll do is we'll change the remap from maybe 1 to 1.5. It's actually not too bad. Just to 0.5 maybe. It's a little better. Now the other thing about what we just did here, well, there's a couple things. I want this to go to like 2, 2.5, just so we get a little more. There we go. That's a little better. It might be too much. Let's go 2. Oops, not 23. Let's go 2. So the one thing you can see here, if I just pause these, you can see there's not a lot of, it's just another blob inside of a blob, right? There's no separation of lines. So we need to make that separation somewhere. So we're going to subtract from this a new blob. So the best way to do that, just trying to think what the best way to do that is actually. Probably what we'll do is we'll do one more remap from this guy, and then a clamp and a floor, of course. Okay, and as you can see, we have this again, and we're going to remap this a little different. We're going to go from 1 to 0, and then we're going to play with this value. Actually, what we'll do is we'll get something more like this. Is that the same as what we have? I think that might be the same as what we have. Math is hard. So I might actually go back to how we had it. Just 0, 1, let's go 0, 2, 3. That's not going to be good either, though. Let's try this. Sorry, I'm just trying things because I'm trying to figure out how to best do this. Actually, you know what might be a better option? Okay, ignore this. What we're going to do instead is we're going to grab just one of these texture outputs. We're just going to register another variable. Instead of having both of them added together, we're just going to grab one of these, and we're going to say, we're going to call this bubble separator. Okay, and we're going to put that into a get down here. Okay, we'll grab our bubble separator, and we will remap it. And we'll do the clamp and floor. Clamp it, floor it. Now in this remap, let's check out the floor here. In this remap, we're just going to grab something like this, we'll say. It's hard to see the previews because of that stupid bug that I have, but let's just save this, and I will hit play and stop it. And now we have our previews back. So that's going to give us this nice like bubble separation here, see? So what we'll do is, not sure what we need this to be, maybe something like this. That looks good. We'll just subtract that from this. That gives us this, which is a little more separated line-wise. So we'll plug that in here instead. See what that gets us. That looks awful. And I think I know why. This has to do with us not clamping in the right spots, but here it looks fine, here it looks fine, here it looks fine, here it looks awful. So we might have to clamp right here. Because we're playing with such big values. There we go. That looks much better already. There you go. We essentially have smoke. We have a duration of 3 on here, and we have a lifetime of 5. So let's just put this to lifetime of 3. It's a little weird right now, but this is all. This has nothing to do with the shader. Um, this is all to do with the actual particle system. Do size over lifetime. Let's start it at like here, so I actually see it a little better. Something like that, right? There you go. Looking pretty cool. Got smoke inside and outside. A cool little effect. And we can change our color over lifetime, of course, so we can make it not fade till the very end, right? Because that controls how much it fades. I'm not sure I really like the alpha being full at the start though. Be like right here. Looks pretty good. So we can play with our alpha. It's pretty neat. We've got a little bit of a mess of nodes here, but it's pretty good. I will share it as is, and yeah, you can improve on it. You can, of course, make any custom values that you want in the inspector by making a property or a float and plugging it in somewhere instead of how we did it. Because right now, if you go to the actual dust particle material, there's really just this, right? There's the outline color, which we can change. Oh, we screwed up on something here. Good to know, good to know. Shouldn't be seeing these colors in here. So let's just leave it on red for a second. Let's fix that. It might just be here that we have to clamp. Where is this coming from? Ah, yes, that's easy. Okay, so we actually should have put this into here. My bad. We should have clamped that first. Let's just organize this a bit because this is a little crazy here. Okay, so now we can have whatever color outline we want as well. And it'll actually work. So we can make it, you know, like a blue outline or black, in my opinion, always looks the best. And there we go. And the actual color of the dust you can change in either color over lifetime. So we can make it kind of like a red, fainted red to start, and it goes to white. Or maybe white to start, and it goes to like a gray color. Lots of things you can do here. There we go. That's it. Perfect. We have created dust. Until next time, talk to you later.